It looks like Top Gun 3 might be leaving out a certain Maverick character. And honestly, I'm totally fine with that. But here's the thing. The story for Top Gun 3 needs to steer clear of one of those annoying sequel habits if it wants to make sure Maverick's best scene doesn't get completely ruined. You know the type, where they bring back a character or storyline just for the sake of nostalgia, and it totally undercuts the emotional punch we got before. But here's the real kicker. When it comes to finding the perfect replacement for Tom Cruise's Maverick, it turns out it might not be Hangman or Rooster after all. Confused? Don't worry, I got you covered. As you saw in the title, we're about to dive into a Top Gun 3 plot leak that fans definitely won't see coming. So let's break it down and see where this is headed. As we know, Tom Cruise's Maverick will return in full force in Top Gun 3, and the franchise will focus more on the younger generation of pilots. And interestingly enough, if Maverick steps back a bit, there's actually a great option for someone to fill his shoes. And it's not the obvious choices like Rooster or Hangman. It might just be Penny Benjamin's daughter, Amelia. Now, if you don't remember, let's rewind for a second. Top Gun was one of the biggest movies to come out of the 80s. It starred a young Tom Cruise as the bold and rebellious Pete, Maverick, Mitchell, and quickly became a pop culture phenomenon. But instead of cranking out sequels right away, the franchise went silent for decades. It wasn't until 36 years later that Top Gun, Maverick hit theaters, and somehow, it didn't just live up to expectations, it soared past them. The sequel managed to combine heart, nostalgia, and intense aerial action in a way that resonated with both longtime fans and new viewers. In Top Gun, Maverick, we catch up with Maverick, who's still pushing limits in the skies. He's called back to the Top Gun program thanks to his old friend turned ally, Tom Iceman Kazansky. His mission? Train a group of elite pilots for an incredibly dangerous mission. One of those pilots happens to be Bradley Rooster Bradshaw, the son of Maverick's late best friend, Goose. On top of that, Maverick reconnects with Penny Benjamin, a character who is only mentioned briefly in the first film, but becomes much more important this time around. Now, Penny owns a bar near the Top Gun base, and she's raising her daughter, Amelia, on her own. Amelia meets Maverick when he walks into the bar, but he doesn't immediately recognize her. Once Penny shows up, though, it's clear there's some history, and not all of it is good. Penny warns Maverick not to break her heart again, and Amelia jumps in too, asking him not to mess things up. But despite the hesitation, Maverick and Penny rekindle their relationship, and by the end of the movie, they're clearly heading towards something more stable and long-term. So what does all this have to do with Top Gun 3? Well, Amelia might be the ideal candidate to carry the torch if the series decides to shift focus away from Maverick. She's deeply connected to the Top Gun world. Her mom runs the most iconic pilot hangout in town, and her grandfather was an admiral, so she's grown up surrounded by this culture. And with Maverick and Penny officially a couple by the end of Top Gun, Maverick, it's not a stretch to imagine that Amelia might see Maverick as a mentor, maybe even a father figure. There's actually a lot of potential in that idea. Maverick has always been defined by loss. First his dad, then Goose. And in the sequel, he tries to make up for those past wounds by looking out for Rooster. If Top Gun 3 were to continue that theme, it could show Maverick guiding Amelia, helping her become a pilot, and stepping into a fatherly role in both life and the skies. And it would be a refreshing direction. Even though the franchise has featured women like Charlie Blackwood and Phoenix, it's never had a female lead at the center of the action. Giving Amelia the spotlight wouldn't mean that Rooster, Hangman, or Phoenix would be pushed aside. They could all still be involved, but the focus would shift toward the next generation in a more meaningful way. And that's something fans seem ready for. In fact, one of Top Gun, Maverick's cast members even hinted that they probably wouldn't be back for the next movie, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, Top Gun, Maverick was wildly successful even without bringing back every original cast member. The absence of characters like Meg Ryan or Tom Skerritt didn't hurt the film at all. If anything, it helped underline just how much time has passed since the first movie. Even Val Kilmer's return as Iceman was handled in a really delicate and impactful way. His limited screen time didn't lessen the emotional weight of his scenes. Instead, it made them even more powerful. And now that his character has passed away, Top Gun 3 should resist the temptation to bring him back through flashbacks or cameos. That final scene with Maverick was such a strong note to end Iceman's story on. It would feel like a step backward to undo that. Speaking of characters who probably won't return, Ed Harris, who played Chester Hammer Kane, the tough-as-nails superior officer who butts heads with Maverick, recently said in an interview that he doesn't expect to be in Top Gun 3. He was pretty casual about it, joking that he doubts the filmmakers need him again. And honestly, he's probably right. His role in Top Gun, Maverick, worked well for that movie, but it doesn't need to be repeated. We've already seen Maverick square off with the higher-ups who don't trust his methods. Doing a third time might feel stale. Instead, what might be more interesting is turning Maverick into that figure, the gruff, demanding superior officer who has to rein in a new batch of hotshot pilots. It would be a full-circle moment for his character. He spent his whole career resisting authority, so watching him become the authority could be fascinating, especially if he's struggling to keep pilots like Hangman and Rooster in line. It would force him to reflect on his own reckless past and think about what kind of legacy he wants to leave behind at Top Gun. There's a hint of this shift in Top Gun Maverick already. While Maverick starts out as an instructor, he eventually ends up back in the cockpit because the mission is just too risky to trust to anyone else. But Top Gun 3 could stick with that initial idea and keep him in more of a leadership position. Let someone else fly the planes while Maverick watches over them, tries to guide them, and maybe even butts heads with some new recruits. And if Amelia is one of those pilots, it makes the dynamic even more layered and personal. Plus, from a storytelling standpoint, it's just smart to keep things fresh. Top Gun, Maverick managed to strike a great balance between honoring the original film and doing something new. But if the third movie just repeats the same beats again, Maverick Rebels gets chewed out by the brass, then proves them wrong, it's going to feel like a rerun. Switching things up by giving Maverick a promotion and focusing on a new lead like Amelia keeps the energy alive and moves the franchise forward. And that's that for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.